You're listening to the X106 Sports Podcast. Trevor Maeder and Evan Brown. Every other week, we bring you a podcast going through what is going on in the sports world. Here is what is on the docket for us today. Going to look at the end of the Northwest Missouri State Bearcat women basketball season. Also going to talk some NFL free agency and the NBA. What's going on there? Big injury last night. We will talk about that. So keep it tuned. The X106 Sports Podcast coming up next. Welcome back into the X106 Sports Podcast. Trevor Maeder and Evan Brown with you like we are every other week. Evan, Northwest Missouri State Bearcats, their women's basketball season, it comes to an end last night, a tough one down in Edmond.
And that's true. They did improve on last season's record. They finished this year 9-18, 4-15 in conference play. Last year they were a whopping 5-23, 3-19 in conference play. So I mean, slow and steady wins the race. So hopefully next year we can hover around that 500 mark, maybe even past that 500 mark. But last night against that Oklahoma team, Northwest fell 67-50. Tanya Meyer, once again, leading scorer for the Bearcats. She put up 12, 5 of 16. But yeah, once again, the turnovers are the Achilles heel for the Bearcats.
Yeah, and it was a game going into the second half. Mm-hmm. It was 29-25 going into the second half. They got outscored 21-7 in the third. A big run there kind of opened things up. So anytime you have a quarter where you only score 7 points at any level of basketball, it's probably not going to end well. And we saw that at times this year with this team where they'd have streaks where everything was going really, really well, and it almost looked like they couldn't miss. And then they'd have times where it was almost like they couldn't hit anything, and they just couldn't find their rhythm. And last night it was kind of that kind of game. They looked pretty well in the first half and then kind of hit a wall in the second half and couldn't quite get it done. Like you said, Tanya Meyer led the way with 12 points. Maria Dentlinger had 11. Caitlin Sudeth had 12. Nice performance for her coming off. I'm assuming she came off the bench in that one. Someone that hadn't seen a ton of time this year, and she comes out and scores 12 points, 4 of 8 from the field. So a decent night from her, but all in all, 34% was how they shot. So anytime you shoot 34%, it's kind of a little bit of an uphill battle trying to get anything going.
Real tough to win a game shooting only 34%. And, the Bearcats, like I said, they've struggled with it the whole year. And then you throw turnovers on top of that, you're not getting back in transition defense, not capitalizing on free throws. Just the little things. They stack up, and eventually they're all going to fall down like Jenga.
Yeah, and you look at, exactly, just like Jenga. And you look at their schedule. They started off 5-0, and I did a handful of those games. And watching them, I thought, okay, things are really looking good here. It looks like they're on the uphill, and then once they got into conference play, and obviously level of competition is a big difference. There's a big difference between playing Pitt State and Kansas Valley or one of them. So it was probably better than some people maybe thought it would be, but then when you looked at where they were at the beginning of the year and where they ended, not quite probably where you want it to be. I mean, when you start 5-0 and you finish 9-18, that's not the answer you want, but I mean, it's still better than winning all of 5 games last year. Yeah,
and they had a 9-game losing streak during the middle of the season, and any team, be it baseball, basketball, football, anytime you have a 9-game losing streak, that's gonna really break your heart as a player. It's gonna just really bum you guys out, and it's hard to get out of that. But you see these bright spots like against the Fort Hays State on the earlier in January, where they put up 92 on the best defensive team in the nation, arguably. And you're just like, well, where did this come from, and where has it been all year? And it's just stringing together 4 quarters of good basketball. You can't only have 3, and if you do, you're not going to win that game.
But one thing I noticed in watching this team quite a bit this year, definitely in the middle part of the season, was they seem to have nights where they'd have one particular person, maybe it's a Tanya Meyer or an Arbery Benson, go off. I mean, 25 points, 30 points, pull a double-double. But then it just seemed like to get anything going around them, it wouldn't go their way. I mean, you would get good looks from Mallory McAndrews and they wouldn't fall. Or, Arbery Benson would get good drives to lane and she just wasn't getting the makes that they needed. So, I mean, it was just a matter of not only putting together a string of 4 quarters, but having more than one person put together a string of a really, really good game. And they just couldn't do that. Maybe some of it's the inexperience, which, going into next year, this team will have 2 seniors. They had Carly Wilhelmy and Jasmine Howe, and even those 2 had been junior college transfers. So this was only their second year in the program, so it was essentially all freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So, I mean, what do you think the future looks like for them going forward?
Well, it's obviously definitely bright. Like you said, we're only losing 2 seniors. Jasmine Howe obviously hurts a lot. Obviously, the Aussie assassin. But we have those younger players coming up like Mallory McAndrews, who is arguably on the same tier 3-point shooting wise, and so we've got 4 or 5. I think 5. I'm counting 6, maybe juniors on the team. So that's going to be a lot of leadership coming next year, even from the maybe those seniors that don't start. Is going to be able to, hey, we've been here before. We've been down 10 points before. You remember last season. We can do this. And then hopefully next season they're going to come back from those 10-point deficits and win in overtime and that sort of thing. So it's looking up for us, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this coming season. I feel like Buck Shield is excited to get it going too.
Yeah, I believe I read something, I heard something that he's going to hit the recruiting trail as early as tomorrow. So I mean that shows how much of an off season you have when you're a college basketball coach. But yeah, I mean I think this team definitely has some potential going forward. I mean, when you only lose two players on a team, and it's already an improvement from last year. I mean, we were talking at the beginning of the year, if they can just make the MIAA tournament, that'd be an improvement. Well, lo and behold, coming down to the last game of the regular season, they're able to best Lincoln, and they're in the tournament. Things in the tournament might not gone the way they wanted to go, but definitely on the up and up. And well, I mean, I'd like to see more out of them next year, and hopefully we will.
Of course, yeah.
Well, that'll probably pretty much about sum it up for the Northwest Missouri State women's basketball segment. Like I said, their season ends at 9-18. They say goodbye to seniors Jasmine Howe and Carly Wilhelmy. They will return a full slate of key members from this year's team into next year. So interesting to see what happens there going into next year. But coming up next, we're going to talk into some NFL free agency and what's going on there in the offseason. So stay tuned for the X106 Sports Podcast. Welcome back to your X106 Sports Podcast. Trevor Maeder, Evan Brown. Now we're going to dive into the NFL offseason. One of my favorite parts of the NFL in general. I don't get as worked up for Major League Baseball offseason and the NBA offseason as much as I do the NFL. And Evan, if you're a Chiefs fan, I mean, there's a lot to digest here just in the last 24 hours.
A lot of ups and downs. Obviously, the up is Eric Berry's 6-year, $78 million contract, $40 million guaranteed. But then the downs, the all-time leading rusher for the Chiefs gets released, and it's going to really suck seeing him in anything other than Chiefs red or Chiefs white. But, it sucks. Life sucks. It's full of up and downs. You got to deal with it. Jamal Charles is hopefully – I wish all the best for him. I hope he just has one of those amazing years that really makes us wish we would have kept him. But – getting Eric Berry back on our defense is absolutely key. He is the backbone of our defense. He holds the team together. He's the glue in which the Chiefs are able to stay together during a season or during that winning streak. And after he came back and after his Hodgkin's lymphoma, there was something that sparked inside the Kansas City team. If he can beat that, we can beat anybody. That sort of mentality. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see come next year.
Absolutely. Barry signing a 6-year, $78 million contract like you had alluded to. And I like the deal. The only thing about the deal that I don't like is I'm pretty sure Barry probably doesn't have 6 great years left in him because, at the end of this contract, he'll be 34. And unless you're Charles Woodson or Rondé Barber, it's kind of rare to see a defensive back playing that well in their mid-30s. But who knows? I mean, maybe we're wrong. But at the same time, I mean, if you don't give Barry that 6-year deal, you're probably not keeping Eric Berry. I mean, if you just throw a 2 or 3 year deal out there for Eric Berry, a 2 or 3 year, $35 million, which would be about the same he'd make.
Yeah.
Then you're probably not keeping Eric Berry at all. He's going somewhere else, and we don't want that at all. I don't remember what I read the guaranteed money was. I think it was 20,
I think it was
40. I couldn't remember. I'll look that up, but yeah, I mean, so he's definitely getting a good payday, and he deserves it, being the highest paid safety in the NFL. And with Jamal Charles, I'm with you. I hated to see it from a Chiefs fan perspective.
Yes.
From a business perspective, I totally get it. I think
yes.
He was due to make like $9 million this year.
Mm-hmm. I think it would have been like a $6 million salary cap hit.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and I think he had
either way.
He had a 2-year, $18 million contract is what he was on that I think was supposed to expire this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're paying $9 million for a guy that's played in 8 games in the last 2 years and has had like 75 carries and 400 yards in those 2 years. So I don't blame him at all. I'll be interested to see what they do with the running back position. I don't know that you can commit to Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West for the long term. But then again, you look at what's out there, the free agency market. I mean, really, I'm not sure there's a good get there.
Well, we did already sign C.J. Spiller, though.
Yeah, but I'm not. I mean, Spiller hasn't really been a factor in this league, so I'm not so sure that's not just a camp body.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at where they're drafting. I mean, unless a Leonard Fournette or a Dalvin Cook falls, and I don't see any scenario that.
The only scenario I could see is Dalvin Cook falling down to, or maybe us trading up a few picks.
Yeah,
just to get
I
a
think
Dalvin
Cook's
Cook.
a better. I think Cook's probably the better pro-ready.
Yeah,
running back than Fournette. I think Cook's a better pass catcher. Fournette needs to be a better pass catcher.
He fits better with what the Chiefs do.
Oh, yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Andy Reid would love a guy like Dalvin Cook. I just don't think Dalvin Cook will be available by any means.
No.
So, interesting to see what they do there. And, cannot thank Jamal Charles enough for everything he's done for this franchise for the past 9 seasons. Anytime you let a franchise great go like that, it's definitely not something you want to see. And his ACL injuries that he suffered were on both different knees, or I think the first one was the right and the second was the left. I have that backwards, but I remember watching both those games and the dejection I felt when that happened. It was just awful. So I do wish him the best, no matter where he goes, even if it's somewhere like Denver or Oakland. I could still pull for Jamal Charles, even if I don't really care for the team he's on. I look for him. I got thinking about teams I could maybe see him end up at. New England, maybe, just because that seems like something New England would do. Seattle needs a running back. I'm not sure what the odds are of them going after Jamal Charles. 2 that I think really, really stick out. Indianapolis. Chris Ballard is the GM there now. He was the director of player personnel forever. And they need a running back aside Frank Gore. And then Philadelphia. I mean, Doug Peterson's there as the head coach. He knows the offense that Doug Peterson's going to run. Maybe you see that. I mean, they didn't really have that pass-catching running back out of the backfield this year. I mean, nothing against Ryan Matthews. He's just not that guy.
No.
And, I mean, Darren Sproles is kind of getting up there in age as well. So, interesting to see what they do there and whether or not he ends up in Philadelphia. Yeah, I read something. There's still a chance that he could re-sign with the Chiefs, but I don't see that happening.
I don't either. There's no need to have a Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West, C.J. Spiller, and a Jamal Charles. I mean, obviously not all 4 of them are going to stay on the team, but it's just pointless. If you're going to release him, why sign him?
Well, yeah, and I think from what I've kind of interpreted is had he, kind of been willing to restructure his contract, he might have still been a Chief. So my thing would be what would change from there to now?
Exactly.
So, I mean, who knows going on there, and we should see where he winds up. And he wasn't the only running back that was cut or was going to be playing for a new team in 2018 or 2017, I should say. The Minnesota Vikings have parted ways with Adrian Peterson, the running back who will be 32, I believe, in a couple of weeks.
March 20 something.
Yeah, he'll be 32 in March. Will play for a new team next year. Evan, what were your thoughts when you saw that? I was kind of surprised.
My roommate's actually a avid Minnesota Vikings fan, and
tough life.
I remember. Yeah, I was sitting on the couch, and right as the news broke, he walked in from class. I was like, "Hey, man, read the ticker at the bottom." And he read, and he was just mad for the rest of the day. And I was like, "Man, I mean, you had to see it coming." He's like, "I know, but it just sucks seeing him go." And then, however many days later, Jamal Charles went through, and he sent me through the whole same repetition. But I was thinking the other day. I saw a tweet saying that Jerry Jones wanted Adrian Peterson in Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott, and I was just, that's never going to work. I don't like it. I would love to see Adrian Peterson go to the Buccaneers. I'd like to see a Doug Martin sort of Adrian Peterson running back.
Yeah,
I mean, interesting.
If Martin can stay healthy, I think so. The Jerry to the Adrian Peterson to the Cowboys, I wouldn't be that surprised if it happens just because it's a Jerry Jones type move. I don't think it's a bad get if you're the Cowboys. I mean, because you kind of have that duo. You take some of the workload off of Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, you throw in another name like Adrian Peterson, who grew up in Texas and grew up a Cowboys fan. The one that I personally think will probably happen is I think you'll end up with the Giants. I mean, they've been awful at the running back position for, the last 5 years. I mean, Rashad Jennings just isn't getting the job done.
No, and I think he Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he might have got released. He did get released.
He got
didn't
released.
And I think he signed on for Dancing with the Stars this season.
Did he? Rashad Jennings is a star.
I'm almost positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
So he's going to be working on his footwork this offseason, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
But no, if you look at some of these names, there are some young guys in the free agency market, but they're going to need some work. Guys like Benny Cunningham out of Los Angeles. Obviously none of them are going to be featured backs. They're not going to be your number one guy, but Danny Woodhead.
Coming off a torn ACL, that'll be tough.
Lance Dunbar,
Is he with the Saints, I believe? I'm pretty sure.
Who, Dunbar?
Yeah, he was with the Rams. He was one of those two.
I'm not sure.
The thing that I wonder with for the Vikings is, they cut Peterson. What's their go-to now? I mean, I don't know that. I mean, Jerick McKinnon isn't probably the long-term guy. Matt Asiata.
No, I think Asiata might be a free agent.
Isn't? Yeah, I mean, so neither ones are your long-term solutions. They don't have a first-round pick. They traded it away with the Sam Bradford trade.
Mm-hmm.
Had they did, they'd be picking, I want to say 15th. That'd be prime Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette range, but they're not there. So, I mean, I guess you kind of have to hope that you have something in the second round. Well, there's some good running backs in this draft class aside from Cook and Fournette. Deontay Foreman from Texas is one that I'm thinking of. There's a running back from Toledo. His name is escaping me. I think it's Kareem Hunt. He's a third-round projection, and I know there's a handful of others that I can't remember their names off the top of my head. Obviously, you can go to Joe Mixon and you can say what you want there, whether or not you think they'll take him. I would think after everything going on with the whole Adrian Peterson debacle, they probably won't take Joe Mixon, but
no,
who knows? I mean, you need a running back. I guess beggars can't be choosers in that situation. I mean, what do you do?
And I mean, it's going to be interesting, but just switching gears just a little bit, if you look at the wide receivers, now that is where it's going to get interesting. We have the top five are pretty known names. You got Alshon Jeffrey, Vincent Jackson, Victor Cruz, Pierre Garçon, and Deshaun Jackson.
I read something about Deshaun Jackson going to San Francisco is what
would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Vincent Jackson's getting up there in age.
He is, 34.
Yes, and Alshon Jeffrey, I don't know that Jeffrey's the number one guy. Jeffrey kind of reminds me of like a Dwayne Bowe. He's a solid player. I'm just not sure Alshon Jeffrey's a guy that's going to come into your locker room and be that Odell Beckham type player.
Well, Dwayne Bowe never made $15 million a year.
No, he made $8 million last year at Cleveland and got like 5 catches out of it. And who are the others?
Victor Cruz, Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, and
Cruz has been kind of dinged up the last couple of years.
That's true. I don't
know enough about Pierre Garçon. His production's been a little down, but I mean he's still serviceable.
Yes,
definitely. And you transitioning now to quarterbacks. There's a couple teams that have made some moves with quarterback. First off, Kirk Cousins is a very rich man right now. Being franchise tagged by the Redskins.
Mm-hmm. And if they're not able to get that long-term deal done, 49ers might be tossing some trades that way, seeing what they can offer up for Kirk Cousins to get back with Kyle Shanahan and get that whole rebuilding process going if Deshaun Jackson does go to the 49ers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think all it would take is a couple ones. And I think with Cousins, I like Kirk Cousins a lot.
I do.
I don't think he's probably a great quarterback, but I think he kind of reminds me like a Matt Ryan. I mean, he's kind of a little bit of a gunslinger, but you look at his stats the last couple of years, and they're
led the league in
they're
yardage.
Pretty darn good. I mean, if I had to choose between Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith, I would take Kirk Cousins.
Oh yeah, every day. So
I mean, it'll be interesting. I know his franchise tag for this year, the exclusive franchise tag is $23.9 million. So last year it was $20 million. So in 2 years he's made just shy of $44 million. If for whatever idiotic reason the Redskins want to franchise tag him next year, that goes up to just under $30 million, which, I mean, unless Kirk Cousins throws for like 60 touchdowns and 6,000 yards and wins a Super Bowl, probably isn't going to happen. So, he'll be a free agent next year regardless, whether he plays with the Redskins or goes somewhere like San Francisco or you never know. It just, to me, if you're the Redskins, you had the perfect chance to lock up Kirk Cousins for the prime of his career, and you're just botching it right now with franchise tags, and you're giving him the leverage. I mean, he's playing on a 1-year contract. He's betting on himself, which is gutsy to do, not once but twice. But he proved last year, I can do it. It's no problem. So be interesting to see where that goes. And whether or not, he's there in 2018, I don't think he will be. I don't know where he will be in 2018, but I'd be willing to bet that it's not Washington.
And if Washington messes this up, wow, that was bad grammar. Anyway, if they do end up messing it up and letting Kirk Cousins walk, what are they doing?
Yeah.
They have everything that they need right now. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
Arguably.
And they have a decent O-line, too.
They have a decent O-line. Their defense is getting better. Josh Norman.
Yeah, Jordan Reed's one of the best tight ends in the NFL.
Exactly. If he can stop getting concussed, they could be a threat. They're really good. In the next 2, maybe 3 years, they load up on some players, and they could be a scary team. But another team who is just kind of like a dumpster fire right now, Chicago.
Yeah,
Jay Cutler,
like the definition of a dumpster fire.
And Jay Cutler, he hasn't passed his physical or whatever it was. He still has fluid in his arm from his surgery, and so they can't release him. They've already said that they want to release him, but he's the only quarterback on their roster right now.
Yeah, the Bears are going to be doing something at quarterback, and you look at the quarterbacks that are in the draft this year. The big three: Mitch Trubisky from North Carolina, Deshaun Watson from Clemson, and Deshaun Kaiser of Notre Dame. I was listening to Todd McShay this morning on Mike and Mike, and he had second-round grades on both those guys. I personally, if I had to rank them, I'm kind of torn between Kaiser and Watson. I haven't seen enough from Trubisky to know. I mean, the guy's only played 13 games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a huge gamble. I personally, I think if Trubisky is there at 3 when they're picking, I think that's probably their guy because he's kind of that big, strong arm quarterback. I mean, John Fox likes the big strong arm quarterbacks. He's not a big fan of the mobile guys like a Deshaun Kaiser or Deshaun Watson. So I think that's where they would probably go in that one. And I mean, Jay Cutler, I think Jay ends up being a Jet, which would be comical.
It would be comical. I don't know. I see Chicago signing Brian Hoyer for this year. And
I mean, Hoyer isn't a bad. He's not bad by any means.
He's a great replacement. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a good spot holder.
I mean, you're not gonna probably win any Super Bowls with Brian Hoyer, although they did almost win with Rex Grossman.
Yeah,
but he's serviceable. I mean,
he is.
What people forget is when he was with the Browns a couple years back, they were leading that division when he tore his ACL. They were like 5-3 or 4-3. I mean, they're playing well. So interesting to see what happens there. Another one. This one just happened today. Wasn't cut, but opted out of his contract. Colin Kaepernick gonna test the free agency waters. I'll be interested to see what the free agency waters are like for him.
It's gonna be really interesting. A team like Chicago, who knows?
Yeah. Cleveland's one that
Oh man, add another name to that list.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. And you can, take whatever you think about Kaepernick and his political views. Take him aside. I mean, it doesn't matter. Everyone knows that at one point in his career there was a time where you looked at that kid the same way you look at Dak Prescott now. I see a lot of Colin Kaepernick and Dak Prescott, and for whatever reason it didn't work. I honestly, I might be in the minority here, but I think Kaepernick still has a chance to have a serviceable rest of his career. I don't think he might ever be what he once was, but I think he could be all right. I mean, you look last year when he did play, he wasn't awful.
No.
He was just surrounded by a terrible team and has had terrible coaching since Harbaugh left.
Yes.
So, it'll be interesting to see. I think Chicago's a factor. Cleveland's got to be a factor for any living, breathing arm.
I might be a factor.
Yeah, you and I both might be. And they haven't seen my 40 time yet, so that'd be bad. Houston, maybe? I mean, with Brock. I don't know that. I don't know about Kaepernick fitting into New York with the media and stuff. So.
No.
I mean, Denver was kind of after him last year. I mean, if they could have got the mechanics of the deals worked out, it sounded like he was going to be a Bronco. So that would be interesting to see. And we can save the Tony Romo talk for another day. Yeah. I mean, that saga is going to go on for a while. I personally think Romo will probably end up in Chicago. Well, what you do, I think, if you're Chicago, is you get Romo, and then you draft a quarterback like Trubisky. If you're going to draft Trubisky, you want Romo, to at least have someone for him to learn under. Because I'm not saying Mitch Trubisky can't be a good quarterback. I just think he needs some time under someone. We'll see if they give that to him.
Yeah, Romo might be the guy to take him under his wing, show him how it's done.
Yeah, show him how you can break your back in 13 different places. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. That'd be the fear for me if I was a Bears fan or anyone trying to sign Romo. Even with the Chiefs stock, I love the guy. As a kid, I was always a big Romo fan, but he just at this point in his career, it petrifies me, and you just wonder what hit is that guy going to take that's going to be the last.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's going to be interesting in the upcoming couple weeks.
It absolutely will be. The NFL offseason officially starts next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so it'll be 3 p.m. our time. So follow Adam Schefter on Twitter if you can. That's greatness right there. So you get all the news on that. Joe Rivas also cut. That's a whole nother saga. There are going to be a lot of strange faces in different places for next year. So interesting to see where that goes. But that'll pretty much sum up the NFL free agency talk. When we get back, we're going to take a quick recap of what's going on in the NBA. You are listening to the X106 Sports Podcast. Welcome back in X106 Sports Podcast. Trevor Maeder, Evan Brown wrapping it up. We've already gone through Northwest Missouri State women's basketball, NFL free agency, and now it's time to talk a little bit of NBA. Evan, I don't know if you saw this last night, but the Warriors kind of suffered a huge loss last night. Not even on the court, just in general.
Well, it's not a big deal. Let's be honest. They thought it was a lot more serious than it was. It's a grade 2 MCL or MC, whatever it was.
Grade 2 MCL sprain.
MCL sprain. Thank you. Yeah. I was just watching ESPN 30 minutes ago, right before we came over here to record this, and they were talking about the injury to Kevin Durant and how they thought it wasn't as bad as initially, and so they actually said that he'll probably be back before playoff time, but they're not going to rush him back or anything like that. I mean, you still have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond,
and you're going to probably be the 1 seed in the West no matter what.
Absolutely, and they also they just picked up Matt Barnes as a placeholder.
Yeah, so they're in good hands. I believe I read, it's a grade 2 MCL sprain. Probably out they'll reevaluate in about 4 weeks. There's a chance he could return for the end of the regular season, but he should be good to go for the playoffs. So, there was a point for a while last night where they thought it was a lot more serious than that. They thought it was maybe season ending. So, good to see that, that wasn't season ending. And also, looking at this today, I saw this. You're a big Kansas fan, so this will kind of devastate you. The 76ers rule out Joel Embiid for the rest of the season with a torn meniscus. That guy just cannot catch a break, can he?
Trust the process, man.
Yeah. I don't know what the process is right now, and I don't know that they know. I mean, he was playing pretty well.
He was playing amazing.
Before he went out. The kid just cannot catch a break. He had the back problems and stuff. It's just, he's almost getting Greg Odenized, really. I mean, Greg Oden was the same way. He had so much talent. And when he played, he showed flashes of promise. He just couldn't stay healthy enough to play consistently. So, hate to see that. And you look at the NBA right now, and basically Cleveland and Golden State are practically on a crash course to meet in the finals. But if you look, what team from each conference probably gives them the best shot? I mean, if you're Cleveland, what's the one team in the East that probably has the better chance of contending with you?
It's difficult. I would love to say the Celtics. I feel like they could compete with them better, but I feel just the skill difference. You have Isaiah Thomas, and that's just it. I mean, you got Marcus Smart, Jay Crowder, Al Horford, and
no Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. If they got Jimmy Butler, lockdown defender on LeBron James. Who knows? They could, potentially win that 7-game series, but I just really don't think that there's a team that can, go through a 7-game series with the Cavaliers and compete.
No, I don't either. I think the team that probably gets out of that and gets to the Eastern Conference Finals is probably Washington. I mean, they're playing really well right now. But I don't by any means think that they'll beat Cleveland in a 7-game series. That's the difference between basketballs. You got to win 4 times. The only team that might be better than Cleveland in 4 games out of 7 is Golden State, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's tricky. How about the West? I think probably San Antonio. I mean, you can never count on a Coach Pop team.
I really like Houston right now. They are on fire. When they got rid of Dwight Howard, I was like, oh, geez, well, here they go down the toilet. But Clint Capella, he found his place. He found his stride. And they picking up Lou Williams. Oh my goodness, they're all just a 3-point barrage now. And they were actually saying that their strategy for trying to beat the Warriors is just shoot as many threes as possible. I read that and I was like, well, I mean, that kind of makes sense, but you got to make them. The only thing.
It's one way to do it, I guess. How about the MVP race? I mean, it's kind of tightened up. I mean, who would you go to?
Well, I mean, only one guy in the league right now is 30 triple doubles. So I'm gonna have to give it to Mr. Russell Westbrook, and especially if they do make the playoffs and go a ways into it, if at all possible. Especially with Cantor finally coming back. They just picked up Taj Gibson, didn't they? And Dougie McBuckets.
Dougie McBuckets is now with the Thunder.
So yeah, X factors are being implemented into their offense and everything. So promising things could come, and I honestly think that Russell Westbrook is going to win the MVP. At this moment, there's no way you can't give it to him.
Yeah,
although Harden is having one of the best seasons he's ever had.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of guys that can make the argument for me. Harden, Isaiah Thomas, Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, that kid is playing really well, and I've heard a lot of talks of comparing him to LeBron. I don't know that that's fair. I mean, I've seen the kid. The kid's impressive, but I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, isn't it?
I mean, I couldn't imagine. If I was in his shoes, I couldn't imagine getting comparisons to LeBron James only being, I think he's like, 22?
Yeah, he's been in the league a couple years, but he's not very old.
Yeah, I mean, he's got all of the potential in the world, and all of the skills that you can ask for. And, yeah, he's 22 years old, and here it is. Giannis Antetokounmpo looks like a lot like a young LeBron James.
I just read that.
It's crazy stuff, and I think Giannis is going to he's going to be one of the greats at the end of his career, I think.
When does he become a free agent? Because I find it very hard to believe that he will stay in Milwaukee.
I would love for him to. That'd be cool. I would love to see the Bucks, become a power here in a few years. But his salary right now is just a hair below $3 million.
Well, and I was reading this. Earlier in the year, they sent him to a 4-year, $100 million contract extension, but I can't find how much it is, like how late it is through to. It would be through to at least 2019, I believe that is. So, I mean, I just find it hard to believe that when it comes time, you're gonna be able to throw the money at him that you can to keep him to stay in Milwaukee. But I mean, who knows? I guess we'll see. But the kid is fun to watch. One of the rising stars in the NBA for sure.
Absolutely. And if they could just get a really nice point guard out in Milwaukee, I mean, you got obviously Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton just got back. What's his name? Malcolm Brogdon. He's given some valuable bench minutes. Jabari Parker went out with the injury, and
that was
now
huge.
you got Thon Maker, another guy with like a 10 million foot wingspan. That's just a shot blocking genius, and they're promising. I would love for them to be able to compete in the East with the Cavs and everything, but you got to give them a couple years. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens there, but definitely fun to watch. I think that'll pretty much sum it up for the X106 Sports Podcast. Trevor Maeder, Evan Brown with you every other week, providing you our wonderful insight on what's going on in the sports world. So thank you for listening, and this has been X106 Sports. Thank you.